Okay, so we've done our planning. Now we're ready to figure out what we're going to write. So the next stage in our writing process is generating ideas. We have to think about where we're going to get ideas. And with a narrative essay, sometimes our ideas just flow. We know our stories. But sometimes we get stuck. I definitely have had students who don't necessarily know what they're going to write about, can't suddenly think of any stories that have happened to them in their entire lives. So, what do we do when we get stuck? There are some ways to generate ideas. And as a way of thinking about generating ideas and all the different possibilities, I'd like to think a little bit about with you the idea of multiple intelligences. When we talk about multiple intelligences, we're talking about all the different ways that people process information, all the different ways that people learn. So there are intelligences that have to do with talking, linguistic intelligences. There are intelligences that have to do with listening. There are intelligences that have to do with acting or doing, intelligences that have to do with seeing, right? So we can think about all those kinds of intelligences, and then maybe we can narrow them down for our purposes into three basic learning styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Kinesthetic means movement. So we can look at learning styles as a way that we can generate ideas by thinking about how can we access all the different ideas we might have that we can't necessarily think of off the top of our heads. What can we do visually? What can we do auditorily? And what can we do kinesthetically? So thinking about learning styles, how can we think about some ways that we can generate ideas that really access visual, auditory, and kinesthetic modes? I'm going to give you some possibilities and we'll play with them for a little while. One possibility is mind mapping. And mind mapping has been talked about in terms of clustering or webs and things like that. And it's a very visual representation of ideas. We'll also look at storyboarding. Storyboarding is something that videographers are familiar with, that web designers are familiar with as a way to really get ideas down, again, in a visual way. We'll also look at free writing because we don't need to take for granted that writing is a kinesthetic act, that we actually are, by writing, we create movement and we can access different parts of our brains if we need to be doing something. We can also look at some other possibilities there. Auditory methods might include just talking. So we'll look at ways that you can discuss and have those discussions recorded so that you can come back to the ideas you've discussed.